What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Roy, one half of the Combat Sport Guys, coming back to you with another UFC quick pick video, this time in the form of Edwards versus Brady. As always, the link to our long form discussion is going to be linked below in the description. Make sure you check that out. Make sure you show some love. Without further ado, let's get into this card. We have Guram Kutateladze taking on Kwai Fernandez to open up the card, I mean. And I think the odds are not indicative of how close this fight actually is. Kwai is a pretty good fighter. He has solid kickboxing, he has vicious leg kicks, he has a submission threat, but I think Kutateladze is more well-rounded. His striking's a little better. He is durable. He has been tagged in the past, but he's shown that he could be durable. He has the cardio, he has the wrestling. He's just the full complete package, and I think he's just a tad bit better than Kwai, and he's going to pull victorious in this fight. So give me Kutateladze to open up the card with a W. Next up, we have a rematch from, I don't, God knows how long. I want to say 2017, 2018, but that doesn't matter because these men have evolved. They've gotten better. We have Nathan Fletcher, who is a submission threat. He's making his official UFC debut. Last time out, he got the submission in the second round, but in that fight, he did show signs of vulnerability on the ground. He did get tagged a few times on the feet, and I think he's going up against somebody in, Logren, who has the UFC experience, obviously, but he does have the better boxing, the crisper striking, and he does have the wrestling to limit the takedown from Fletcher. And I think Logren, if he's able to keep this fight standing, utilize his boxing, he's going to pull away with a victory here. The only concern is in his last fight, he looked very, very, very robotic, very stiff. I want to see him be a little more fluid with his strikes, but I got Kalen Logren to pull out victorious in this fight. Moving on, we have some women action. Everybody's excited for this fight. We have Shauna Bannon taking on Pooja Tomar. Now, these are both two females who have kickboxing backgrounds. They both utilize leg kicks well. They both like to keep the fight primarily standing. The fight goes down to the ground. They're decent enough to scramble or bring the fight up back to its feet. But I think this fight's going to stay primarily on the feet. I think, looking at Pooja Tomar in her last fight, she didn't do well with Rayanne's forward aggressive movement. She looked like, when she was fighting backwards, she looked like she didn't like that pressure. She looked uncomfortable. And I don't think either of these women won their last bout. And I think looking at, how they size up in this fight and their similarities, I think Shauna Bannon's a bit better. She has the range. She has the she has the range, she has the reach, she has the height, she has the size advantage. And I think in this fight, compared to her last fight, I want to see her mix up her combinations, not be so predictable. Mix up her combinations, keep the fight at range, and apply the pressure, apply the pace, make Pooja uncomfortable, and get the win. But I got Shauna Bannon to be victorious in this bout. All right, next up we have Christian Leroy Duncan taking on Andre Pulyaev. Now, Duncan, he's well-rounded. He's good at striking. He has the speed. He has good grappling. He has crisp technique. He has decent fight IQ, and he has the finishing ability. Eight of his 10 wins resulted in came from a KO, TKO. So I'm sorry, I mixed up my words there. 8 of his 10 wins came via TKO, via KO. So that's something to look out for. He's going up against Pulev, who is a striker, but he's a bit more methodical. He doesn't have a lot of pop. He does utilize his jab well to set up his shots, but as I mentioned, doesn't have the power behind him. He kind of just picks his shots very, very slowly. He does have the grappling. He mixes it in if he has to, but he's not primarily a wrestler. I think Leroy Duncan is going to be a bit too much for him. He's going to apply the pressure, apply the pace, get in his face, and I do have a bet on him to finish with inside the distance. So give me Christian Leroy Duncan to win this bout. Next up, we have some heavyweight action. We have Marcin Tybura taking on Mick Parkin. Now, this will be Mick Parkin's biggest test in the heavyweight division as he looks to get in to that contention, into that top 10, into that upper echelon of the division. And, Marcin Tybura is that, gatekeeper. He last beat out Jonathan Deniz, and a lot of people, I feel, are going off of that recency bias. But Jonathan Deniz, he's primarily a kickboxer. He doesn't have any grappling at all. Once that fight got to the ground, he just laid there. He just laid there, and he got viciously ground and pounded and he lost. But if you remember in that fight, Jonathan Deniz was able to tag him in his entry as he was coming in, and he kind of hurt him. He had him dazed, and he could have won the fight, but he decided to go to the ground, and that was his demise. But I think in this fight, Mick Parkin's gonna do enough to stuff the takedowns. He's going to utilize his jab. He's going to move around. He's going to throw with volume. He doesn't necessarily have a lot of power, but I think he's going to frustrate Tybura by snuffing the takedowns, by utilizing his jab, moving laterally, keeping the fight at his pace, at his liking. So I got Mick Parkin to pull out victorious here. At the start of the week, he was the underdog. That line has moved since. Now he's the favorite, and Marcin Tybura is the underdog. So give me Mick Parkin to win. I like him in this slot. I think there's gonna be a come out party for him if he gets it done. I hope he gets it done. So we'll move on here to undefeated prospect Lonier, whatever, however you want to say it. Kavanaugh taking on Felipe dos Santos. Now, when I look at Felipe dos Santos, he's been dealt a crappy hand in the UFC thus far. He came in on short notice. He fought Manel Cop. He looked good. He threw nice combinations. And then he went into enemy territory and fought against Victor Altamirano, where he was victorious. But a lot of people felt due to Altamirano's cardio and takedowns that he won that fight. But with all those takedowns that Altamirano threw, he was able to, scramble off the ground, search for submissions, and kind of work. He wasn't necessarily dominated on the ground, but he was taken down 9 times, I believe. And then in his third fight, he lost to Andre Lima, and we saw what Andre Lima did last week at UFC 104. So not bad people to lose to. My question with Lonair is a lot of people are touting his striking. He's extremely fast. He has good counters. He has good movement. His boxing is great, but his grappling hasn't been tested at this level, and that's where I have my concerns, and that's where I have my reservations. Striking, I understand that Felipe dos Santos, being a shoot to box guy, he's going to come in, he's going to move forward, he's going to get hit, and he's going to take damage, but he's going to move forward. And I want to see how Lonair does with that forward pressure, because unlike Jesus Ochoa, Felipe dos Santos is going to move forward. He is going to incorporate some grappling at some point, and I want to see how well Lonair Kavanaugh's takedown defense is going to hold up. Now, Felipe dos Santos isn't the best defensive grappler, right? He does get taken down, but when he's on the ground, he looks for the submissions. He gets to work. He scrambles off his back. He does good work. He has good jiu-jitsu. So it's going to be interesting, but I'm picking Felipe dos Santos as a dog here because I just don't know enough about Lonier's grappling. Now, from the footage that I did see on the regional scene, when he was taken down to the ground, he was put in vulnerable positions, but he was able to get out. I think at this level, we're going to really see, and we're going to have a lot of questions answered regarding how does he deal with someone moving forward in the pressure, and how does he deal on the ground. But I do have a bet. It's a DGen bet. Felipe dos Santos to pull out a victory via submission. We'll see what happens. But I'm not saying that Kavanaugh's, a fraud or he's not a good prospect. I just don't know enough at this point to pick him in this fight. I think, Felipe dos Santos has fought the tougher competition. He has the tools, and he's going to mix it up in this fight, and we'll see what happens if it goes to the ground. So moving on here, we have Christopher Taco Padilla taking on Jai Herbert. Got some lightweight action, Jai Herbert, he has that kickboxing base. He has the length. He has the reach over Padilla. And then his path to victory is going to be not letting Padilla close the pace, not letting Padilla close the distance, not letting him dictate the pace, pick him apart from the outside, win that way, be aware of the takedown and, make this your fight. On the side of Taco Padilla, he has a lot of grit. He has a lot of dog. He's going to get in your face. He's going to get in the clinch. He's going to, make this an aggressive forward movement fight. And I think, looking at Padilla's trajectory in the UFC, he came in on short notice. He fought Long Top. He had the submission win. And then when he went up against Rongju, he was the underdog. A lot of people were saying, oh, he's just a wrestler with bad cardio. He's going to gas out. He doesn't have the striking. And what did he do? He went out there and he primarily stood and struck and engaged in striking with Rongju, and he knocked him out. He had that vicious elbow, had his eye socket like this, and he won via TKO in the second round. So, he's gone on interviews and said that I want to showcase that I'm not just a wrestling guy. I'm not just the elbow guy. I'm a well-rounded MMA fighter. And I think he's going to incorporate all that into this fight. We're going to see the wrestling, we're going to see the striking, we're going to see him in the clinch. And I think his forward movement and aggressiveness is going to close the distance, take away the reach advantage from Jai Herbert, and make this his fight. So I got Taco Padilla to pull out victorious in this bout. I like him here. The odds also closed in. Like at the start of the week, he was the underdog. And then as the week progressed, the line is even. I think they're both at minus 115. So yeah, Taco Padilla is a good prospect. He's undefeated in the UFC. He hasn't gone to a decision, I believe, in his last 10 fights, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I like him in this slot, and I like him as a prospect in the lightweight division. So let's hope he gets the victory. So that is our featured prelim. Kicking off the main card, we have Jordan Vucenic, I'm sorry. Jordan Vucenic taking on Chris Duncan, not Christian Leroy Duncan, Chris Duncan. This is another Duncan here. You know, when you look at Duncan, he's a kind of a wild fighter. He moves forward, he throws aggressively, and having that wild style, it leaves them open to getting countered, to getting hit. He's been inconsistent in that aspect. But Vucenic, this is his second fight in the UFC. His first fight was against Kutateladze. He came in on short notice. He looked great in that first round, but his gas tank wasn't there. The wrestling came in, and Kutateladze was able to pull ahead right in that bout. But I think Vucenic with the full camp, he's versatile. He has the grappling. He can chain his takedowns. He can search for submissions. His striking is not completely there yet, but it's evolving and it's getting better. I think he's gonna, in this fight, this fight suits him because with someone like Chris Duncan moving forward, being aggressive, he's going to be able to utilize counters, land that right hand, and maybe put out Duncan. Who knows? I have him winning this fight. I haven't necessarily looked at the props yet, but I'm going to explore that later on this week. But I think Vucenic does get the victory here. He has the full camp, and he's going to be an exciting person to watch in the lightweight division. Next up, we have some featherweight action. We have Nathaniel Wood taking on Morgan Charrieri. Now, this is an exciting fight. You have a newcomer necessarily in Wood. This is his fourth UFC fight, I believe, up against. I'm sorry, Charrieri. This is his fourth fight up against the veteran in Wood. Now, Wood, he's a well-rounded fighter. He has a strong base, the kickboxing and grappling. His striking is technical, precise. He throws nice leg kicks. He has sharp boxing combinations. But one of the things that he struggled with and that we've seen in the past is that he doesn't necessarily like when people apply the pressure and push the pace. And that's exactly what he's going to get here in Charrieri. Charrieri is an explosive striker. He has that Muay Thai and boxing foundation. He throws with good output and has crisp combinations and, a lot of power behind his strike. He's relentless in his pursuit and pushes the pace, and he loves to get busy. And I think that's what's going to be the key to victory for Charrieri in this fight. So with that said, give me Charrieri to pull victorious in this fight. I have him winning with inside the distance. I have him in some parlays. And if you guys are interested in checking out our bets, we do post them on X for free. We don't charge you subscription. We don't have a website. We don't have a Discord. We don't have none of that. We just put it out on a tweet. We put them out there, and for you guys to either tell, to consider, to look at. But yeah, we put them out there. So give me Morgan Charrieri to be victorious in this bout. Next up, we have some women action. We have Molly Meatball McCann taking on Alexia Tainara. Now, Tainara is coming in on short notice. My main concern with her is, obviously she's coming in on short notice. She's flying across the country. How's she going to look? When you look at her fighting style, she is well-rounded, but she generally likes to keep the fight on the ground, where she maintains control, utilizes ground and pound, searches for submissions. She hasn't fought the level of competition that Molly McCann has, and she's coming into enemy territory on short notice. So how good is she? I'm not too convinced in her striking, and I don't think she's that much of a pressure grappler wrestler to maul Molly McCann. Molly, when you look at her, she has the durability, she has the grit, she has the pace to make this her fight. She has an aggressive style. She likes to move in close, engage in the striking. She has okay boxing and good grappling. Her grappling defense is going to be tested is at 50%, but I think she's going to do enough here to get the victory via decision at home. So give me Molly McCann to win. Uh, I was watching some footage on Alexia Tainara striking, and I don't like her head movement or striking defense, and it's just something that I don't feel it's quite there yet. But we're gonna learn. We're gonna see. But give me Molly McCann to win this fight. Next up, we have Kevin Holland at welterweight taking on Gunnar Nelson. Now we haven't seen Gunnar in quite some time, but you know he does bring the grappling threat. He does bring the submission threat, but he's not a grappler. Uh, he's not a grappler in the sense like a Hamza Chimaev or a Rene De Ritter, where they're gonna shoot the single leg, blast double, and look for the submission attempts. His grappling kind of comes from him utilizing his karate stance, utilizing his strikes, and then incorporating trips, getting in close and stuff like that, and then bringing the fight to the ground. I think with the reach advantage that Kevin Holland has, being at welterweight where he's better, in my opinion, is gonna benefit him. I think we have seen Gunnar get chinned in the past. I think Kevin Holland's gonna get it done here. I know it's crazy to say, because, in his last fight leading up to it on the Jackson podcast, he was talking about how he doesn't care about the fight. He was talking about how he, is not taking it serious. So a lot of people are counting him out because, one, it's the inconsistency he's lost, but look at who he's lost to. At 185, he lost to Roman Dolidze, who, despite not incorporating a lot of the grappling, is a grappler with decent striking. Broke his rib in that fight and got TKO'd. He lost to Rene De Ritter, who, champion in another organization with exceptional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and extremely bigger than him, like visibly bigger. If you saw their comparison, he looked taller than him, he looked bigger than him, and those guys at 185 are a lot bigger than him. And I think at 170, he's a problem. He's more comfortable. He looks more fluid. He looks better. I understand people's hesitancy to betting on Holland, but I pick him in this fight. Regardless of who wins, I'm gonna feel dumb. I said this in our full card breakdown. You know, if I pick Kevin Holland and Gunnar Nelson submits him, I'm gonna say, damn, I knew this was gonna happen. If I pick Gunnar Nelson and Kevin Holland goes out there, utilizes his reach, knocks him out, I'm gonna say, damn, I should have picked Kevin Holland. He's fighting at welterweight. What am I doing? But we haven't seen Gunnar Nelson in about 2-3 years, so I'm gonna go with the person who's more active. He has been on a losing skid, but at the end of the day, this is his job, right? He can't lose forever and expect to keep getting these fights. So I got Kevin Holland to pull victorious. I'm not confident in it, but I did sprinkle some money on him when he was a dog. That line did change as well. So we'll see what happens. Moving on here, we have Carlos Uberg taking on Jan Blachowicz. Now, Jan is 42 years old. I know that's alarming for some people. He's coming back from some shoulder injury, and I don't know if he's had the surgery. He's gonna get the surgery, but that's a concern that a lot of people need to consider and need to look at. Despite that, though, his last two fights, he drew to the current champion in Magomed Ankalaev, and he won via split decision. He lost via split decision to the former champion in Alex Pereira, and a lot of people think he won that fight. Now, in this fight, I'm gonna be picking Carlos Ulberg, but I think what he needs to do is to check the leg kicks, focus on the takedown defense for the wrestling, right? Because John Blachowicz can take you down, and don't rush. Take your time. Utilize your jab. Pick your shots. Don't go in there like you did with Alonzo Menenfield. This is a different caliber of fighter. This is a Polish power. He can knock you out like in an instant. So utilize your jab. Utilize your speed. Utilize your movement, and make this your fight. Don't fall into those traps because he does have the veteran savvy. But I think Carlos Ulberg is younger, he's faster, and I just don't know if Jan has fully recovered from that shoulder injury. But if you're picking him as a dog, I'm not mad at it. It's former champ, right? Can't be mad at it at all. Next up, we have our main event, Edwards versus Brady. Now, Edwards is coming off that unanimous decision loss to Bilal Muhammad, where he dropped his title. Sean Brady's coming off that 5 round victory to Gilbert Burns, where a lot of questions were answered. People were questioning his cardio, people were questioning his endurance, people were questioning his durability. He looked good in that fight. Now, there has been criticism regarding him getting knocked out by Bilal Muhammad. Gilbert Burns didn't necessarily throw with a lot of power in that fight. He rarely threw a lot of strikes in that fight, actually, if you go back and watch it. So that question is still there. I don't think Leon Edwards has the power, the killer mentality to go out there and get the finish. We're gonna see, you know, a lot of what we see from Edwards is he has the length, he has the distance, he fights at range, he point fights, right? Utilizes leg kicks. He has solid takedown defense, but he's going up against somebody in Brady who's just relentless. He closes the distance. He brings the fight to the ground. He has good jiu-jitsu. He pushes the pace. And I think if Edwards, has a path to victory here, it's to overwhelm Sean Brady, get in his face. If you look at his only loss to Bilal Muhammad was able to overwhelm him with the strikes. He had him moving backwards. He pushed him up against the cage, and he just kept throwing, kept throwing to, the point where he couldn't continue anymore. So we need to see. It depends on what version of Edwards we see. Are we going to see the same Edwards that we always see, where he's fighting at distance, utilizing his jab, his leg kicks, kind of point fighting? But I think Edwards, you know gets it done here. I think he's going to bring the fight to the ground. He's going to secure takedowns. He's going to have the better moments in this fight. Yeah, so I have Edwards being victorious in this fight. And then we'll see what happens, man. It's going to be very interesting. Two things that I was considering when making this pick is they're fighting at a different time, right? Like, one of Edwards' biggest excuse was, "Oh, well, I was fighting at 5 a.m. It wasn't fair, So now he's fighting at a time that's more suitable to him. He's saying that he feels healthy, that he feels a lot better, that he wasn't necessarily all there for the fight with Bilal Muhammad, but photos are circulating regarding staff and whatnot. It makes me more confident in Brady. I think Brady gets it done here. But there you have it. That's the quick pick video. Make sure you hit the like, make sure you hit the subscribe, make sure you tell me what you think and whether you agree or disagree. As always, make sure you follow us on X, make sure you show some love. Peace.